haciendo todo lo que no se puede hacer con él.
¿Qué claqueta? Está bien,
Se asustaron, se asustaron. Ah, eso es cuando el padre le pone una punta ahí a la... No.
Hello.
Pronto.
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 Stai pronto? Perfetto.
Grazie, grazie.
Parla italiano?
No, no parlo.
Un po'.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I can see you. Should I put my video on too or no?
Wait a minute.
Piacere di conoscerti. Piacere di conoscerti.
Ah, perfetto.
Well, my voice goes up when I get nervous. Are you gonna enable video?
Yes, I can do that.
In my efforts, Mo, to really ramp up the supporting independent film and art film, festival films, that kind of thing, I've made a real. I decided my attempt is to try to post pretty often now on the Filmwax YouTube channel. You know.
Ah, cool.
Because there's so much is in jeopardy, with the industry, at least, here in the United States. And so
you're giving the courage.
you and your hat, maybe your hat hair, but you look good like that. So
yeah, I had this like headscarf thing. It's like when it gets rainy here in Rome, it gets very like cold.
Oh
in
yeah,
your bones.
the damp gets into your bones.
Yeah, but
yeah.
Now I'm in my house.
Nice. And you're in Rome. We should, right? You mentioned you're in Rome.
Yeah.
And did you grow up in Rome?
No, my family, I'm third generation Italian. They came to the United States from Calabria, which is like the most southern region of the boot.
Right.
On the toe.
So you were raised in the United States?
Yes. My great-grandfather came to Chicago, and yeah, I mean, they lived among Italians, but a lot of Germans too. So actually my family doesn't speak Italian. I'm the first one to come back here and take Italian lessons and kind of repatriate in a way.
But it's home though. Huh. Home in Rome.
Well, it feels home. Yeah.
What was the motivating factor to do that? Did you have Italian citizenship?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've been wanting to live be based in Europe. My biggest impetus was film, because it's really hard to fund your films in America when you make them.
Oh, I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, right.
That's a
so being in Italian, I have access to the public funding, and my film in Besa was like very well received here and in pockets of the U.S., but it's not very commercial, so it was. After finishing in Besa, I was like, okay, now is the best time to go to Europe, because Europe liked my film, and America wasn't sure what to do it.
Right. What year was that when you decided to move to Rome?
Well, I wanted to move when I was editing in Besa, so that was in 2018. But then I ended up making this film, A Father Plays Himself, and so doing that was a year and a half of being between Venezuela and Canada, where my partner lives.
In Canada. Oh, very good. All right.
Yeah. So I was kind of all over the place, but then the decision to move was one I had been pushing before I even met him, because I had wanted to come. And we finally did it in February, right before the quarantine.
Yeah. And it's a good time to not be in the United States, not to be
yeah.
I'm considering, do you have a sister? No,
I do. She's
see.
in Portland, of all places.
Oh well. Oh
Yeah.
well. Yeah. Well, that's a hotbed.
Yeah.
Uh, very good. Well, yeah. I mean, and I have a very good, very dear. My parents were big lovers of Italy, Italiophiles for sure. They
Oh,
would go
cool.
every summer. They'd spend their summers in actually most of the time in a town on the Mediterranean, a very old village called Sperlonga.
I was just there.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I went camping there like for a week.
Oh, so you know how. So I've been there a
It's
few times.
beautiful.
Yeah, my you know, it's not, they can't. My mom is not able to travel. My dad passed away, so, but they were enormous fans. And in fact, I've reconnected with a very good friend of theirs who lives in Rome. She's a doctor, and we become friends. I mean, I've known her for many years because of my parents, but you know, when they're not able to really, you know, communicate anymore. I mean, she doesn't have them anymore. So I
Yeah.
picked up the mantle, and it's been a very nice to have regular calls on WhatsApp with her, the video chat. She shares photos of her running around Italy with her friends and sharing
Oh,
how beautiful Italy is. And so yeah, so I promised that I have to bring my dad's ashes to Sperlonga because that was their favorite place in the world.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, when you come say hi in Rome. We live in this
Oh, of
like
course.
beautiful little, well, it's a big palazzo, like a big building. Not so big. I mean, Rome doesn't have huge condos or anything like that, but it's like an old
Yet.
place, but with, yeah,
Yet.
but with like a
Donald
ton of
Trump.
weird Roman characters and all this stuff.
Oh,
Like we
nice.
still have
Yeah.
a good Roman experience here.
Donald Trump says that if he, you know, of course, he's going to be in a lot of legal trouble once his presidency ends. You know, I know that.
Right.
I don't know. I know Italy has had a few leaders along those lines, but
Yeah. It's kind of a
so he's
precursor
threatening
for
to move.
American politics.
He's threatening. Trump moves to Italy, just so you know, and I'm kidding. He wouldn't do that.
I was like, oh, I wouldn't put it past him.
He can't
No, but
move.
I had a call
Well,
today, but from a telemarketer guy who wants me to switch my gas, and even he's like, Americana, complimenti. I'm like, compliments for being American. And he's like, are you voting for Trump? We started talking, and I'm like practicing my Italian with him, so I just talked to him for like 20 minutes about Trump. It was ridiculous. But Italians do that, you know, they'll talk to you forever. Like
oh
they
yeah,
don't like doing business. They like just chatting and like being friends.
sure.
So anyway, that was my experience this morning with the gas and electric guy talking about Trump.
Well, hey, so you reached out, and I mean, I would have reached out to you in a heartbeat if I had, you know, if I had seen El Father Plays Himself prior to us meeting. I would have reached out to you. But how did you? I think you reached out to me. How did you find out about what I was doing? Just curious.
I think from I had like a list of people who had done pieces on Doc NYC or something like that. Or
Sure.
maybe it
Yeah.
was
Yes.
because my last film was at Doc NYC, and then this one's going to
Oh,
be
right.
at Doc NYC. So
Yes.
it might have been through that, but also I feel like it was
I even worked
my
with
friend
them.
Caitlin.
Oh,
You know
Caitlin.
Caitlin Burke.
Yes, of course. I love her. She's lovely.
Yeah, it must have been through Caitlin. She produced my last film in Besa, and she and I are like best friends.
Oh,
So
right.
I think at one point she was like, "You should definitely talk to Adam. He would love your film."
Yeah. And she was on, I think, because she produced the Obit documentary, right?
Right. Vanessa's film. Yeah.
Yeah, so she was on with that and with Vanessa, and then then she produced another friend's film 2 summers ago, I want to say. My friend who made a film called 14.
Yeah. And 14 was at Berlin at the time that my film in Besa was there, so I got to meet Dan
Yeah,
and
Dan
their
Salid,
crew
right?
and stuff. It was cool. So Caitlin had 2 films at Berlin that year, which was crazy.
Well, I look forward to running into her again soon. I think we hung out at Maryland Film Festival last year too. Yeah, so it's all coming back. Well, then I'm so pleased to finally be in touch with you. And I know we were trying to do something earlier, but your film is, among other things, I just spoke with Dan Brawley from Cucaloris.
Great. Yeah.
Your film is opening that festival in a matter of weeks, right?
Yeah.
What else is coming up? Because we can mention it now. before we talk about it?
Yeah, Doc NYC. It's going to come to Doc NYC that same day,
Oh, okay.
which is streamable, I think, everywhere in the US for a week. And then we'll be at IDFA in the Best of Festival section, and we'll be doing some like events, I think, in tandem with like the director of La Fortaleza, who's in my film. Like, we'll do some talks about fiction versus nonfiction. So that should be cool. It will all be online. And then we're heading to, more festivals, a lot in Latin America, also Cairo International Film Festival.
Wow.
And then another cool thing is that we got this super unique award. It's only given to 3 films a year. It's called the Audience Design Fund, and it's given by Torino Film Lab, the really like prestigious script lab. Usually it's like people use them for scripting, a script lab. Anyway, they give this award and we can use it on our own release. So we're releasing the film in North America and Amsterdam, or not Amsterdam, Netherlands, and kind of the Benelux area, and then the UK. Over the next, probably in the spring is when we'll be launching that. But up until that, we'll be giving away like free contests to see it online and stuff like that. So anyway, that's exciting. Unfortunately, everything is online. Like, usually I'm actually running the opposite direction from social media because I find it quite contrived. But in these times when we want people to watch the film, it's become quite essential and actually quite cool, because the conversations that are happening about a film, this film sparks a lot of conversations and a lot of reactions. So it's been really, really cool to use social media for that. And that's how that's what I would say would be the best way to keep in touch about when we're showing and when you can see it, because everything is online. It
may be in a really strange, ironic way, the pandemic will actually make, well, I'm speaking like it's in the future, it's happening now as you describe it, that social media finally has a real positive use.
Right. It's not just a bunch of people bragging. That got old when we decided we actually need it for things.
A lot of humble bragging and a lot of cat videos. Nothing wrong with the cat videos, but my summer camp has stayed connected through this period of time, though, and then finally, festivals and arts are really leaning on it. Musicians have to lean on it to create some sort of tip jar, online tip jar, et cetera. And so, it really feels that we finally arrived because of this urgent situation where finally doing things virtually, it has its real benefit, But a lot of, I think, filmmakers, or I shouldn't say a lot, but a certain part of the population decided, maybe at least for a while, to hold on to their films and not have them programmed this year, because they were hoping for the more conventional, traditional festival experience, meaning screenings with people.
Right.
And then some others just thought, let's try this. Let's see what we can do here. And you're one of those folks. So, and you're finding it.
Well, I was like the rest of us, that I just hoped it would end soon. So it meant, in fact, when I confirmed the premiere with Vision Sorel, which I thought was the perfect place for this specific film, given the kind of work that they usually like to highlight and the kind of things they do for the films in their competition. When I first confirmed, they'd still, down until the Swiss government told them, like, absolutely not, like, we're shutting you down if you even try. They were going to do it in person, just like they were going to have it be just the Swiss would watch it, and then maybe 2 or 3 filmmakers who came from countries that were not dealing with this. So I wouldn't have probably been able to come back then, because I was in Italy, even though I was close. The quarantine here was quite strict. So anyway, then they had to put it online. So it was kind of like, by then I was on board, because I was dedicated to having the film come out there, and we were like, okay, we'll take what we can get with this, and we'll try to make it work the best we can. And we did Krakow Film Festival as well online, and we've done many festivals online at this point. But I think I'm like the rest of us, where I was also like, so when do I get to show in a cinema? And I did 2 weeks ago in France at this beautiful festival in Biarritz. And it was incredible to finally see, 6 months after my premiere, I sit down and I watch the actual projection and hear the actual sound mix in a cinema. And feel what it's like, that thing that you usually feel your premiere. I felt that 6 months after my premiere, Yeah. But now they're talking about like IDFA maybe being completely online, and I might not be able to come. Also at the cinemas, I was at a festival last week here in Italy, that they sold out all the screenings, but I mean, I shouldn't do this. They sold out all the screenings like to capacity, but the government here says you can't have more than 1/3 of people in the screening. So you go in and it's quite sad. Everyone's like in mass and it's only 1/3 of people and you're like, shit, you know? So anyway, COVID is just taking all the fun out of sharing the work, but.
It's like, oh, you're doing the screening, but then it's such a anemic version of what a sold out screening should look like or feel like.
It feels like I'm doing a bunch of like community events, but these are like major festivals in Europe, you know? It's kind of crazy. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
This is the year where it's sort of all experiment, right? It's all about experiment and figuring it out and leveraging off of one another. I'm talking to a number of festival, directors and programmers, and it's interesting. Like Dan, I spoke with Dan, I think it was yesterday. So I'm posting that one soon, and, and the few other festival directors. It's an important time to do it,
Yeah, for sure.
But, so you've had a pretty successful festival experience despite all the challenges. And, the film speaks for itself. It's called Elf Father Plays Himself. And it's under this very, very unique subgenre about a film about a film.
Exactly.
And so you're shooting you're shooting rather a film in production, partly right before, I guess, as well. And then a production in not Venezuela.
Yeah, in Venezuela.
It is. Okay, it is. And it explores the relationship, interestingly enough, between a mostly estranged father and son, a grown son. And the son is the filmmaker. And he's, like I say, he's been mostly estranged from his father. And with that is a great sense of loss and tragedy. And so here is an opportunity to spend, when he gets his dad to actually play a variation of himself in this film, it's an opportunity for the two to spend significant time together and just meet each other in a way new. And of course, it's you can't just sweep all the history under the carpet,
Right.
So and as far as I'm convinced that this is a film that was made, and I can go see it.
It is.
Right?
Yes, the film follows the film called La Fortaleza, which also came out this year. Jorge, the director in my film.
So is he gonna? He's not gonna Zoom bomb our conversation here all of a sudden.
No, he might come home. Okay, so he's also my partner.
Oh, there it goes. Okay, no wonder you had.
So he might come. That's like his old painting in the corner. Anyway, he might come home while we're on the call, which would be cool because he could pop in.
That would be. I love that.
But yeah, it's interesting, the conversations our films have together, but also how they exist completely separately. So his film La Fortaleza.
What does that mean in English? It sounds like strong something.
It's like the fortitude.
Fortitude, strength.
But in Spanish, it can also mean the fortitude, but also it has something to do with like fortress. It's kind of like you build a fortress.
Sure, an emotional fortress.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
So that film premiered at Rotterdam this year, and it also has had a strange, like, non-release so far. While it's going to festivals that are mostly online, and they have some sales and stuff, but it's kind of like all films. It might be a bit before it comes to North America. I'm not sure. But we are going to do. We have had several double bill screenings at festivals with people interested.
How does that go?
We might be arranging some of those in North America next year, which would be really cool. It's a lot. It's intense. It's like, you feel like we realize, whoa, when people watch both, they feel like, first of all, they know everything about this father and son. And second of all, they feel like they went through a very intense therapy session.
And what's your partner's name?
Jorge.
Of course, Jorge. But in fact, both he and his dad's name is Jorge, correct?
Right. So that's why I call him father,
El Father, and they have middle names are how I kept track of them.
Yeah,
Take,
yeah.
take,
Roque is the name, and that's the
okay.
name
Oh,
of
that's the
father
dad.
in La Fortaleza. His
Yeah.
name is his character's name is Roque.
Okay,
So
right. Okay. Has he been also at the? Was he at the festival at that one? Where or any
he
of
was at
those where you?
Rotterdam. Yeah, he came to Rotterdam, and then the other ones have been online. But so yeah, he hasn't been there in person for the screens about Father yet, which like makes me sad because I was really looking forward to being there with him. You know, it's such an intense film, but he's an
Yeah.
intense guy. He can take it. So
Oh, he has real fiber, huh?
yeah, yeah. And he's, you know, he was ready to kind of do a lot of, well, he didn't know how ready he was, I think, to face some things that Jorge wrote into his life and then made him act in the film. But he was always very trusting of me and very ready kind of for this film. I think it's just hard for him to watch my film for sure. I mean, he told me this, that it's hard to watch because he knows, I think he knows in my film, he's quite self-destructive. He knows that he acts out, that he drinks, that he has this streak, and he knows that that he behaves that way. He's been doing it his whole life, so he remembers. It's not like he drinks enough to forget all of it. But
Right.
he doesn't ever really have to like linger on his son's face watching him and being upset or disappointed or worried and all these things. So I think that part of him watching El Father Plays Himself is quite strong. But he's in Caracas now where he lives, but he's outside of Caracas at a rehabilitation center.
Is that right? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's been doing quite well. Like he went in at
This-
the perfect time during quarantine, so he can just.
All right. Well, you brought it up. So he's. I mean, in at least in your film, again, it's called El Father Plays Himself. He comes across as pretty severe addiction,
Yeah,
or alcohol
yeah.
problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that is the story. This is why the process partly was so intense and of making the film with his son is that his son wrote him as a struggling alcoholic in the movie. So his son wrote things that he would do when he would get drunk and also wrote him struggling with trying to not get drunk. And
Yeah.
so that was like basically making, in a way, he was kind of making his dad face his own demons by playing out a character who is himself.
Right. I was thinking about it when I was watching, and I was thinking when he agreed, when Jorge Roque,
Mm-hmm.
when he agreed to do the movie and travel to the village where they shot it, I was wondering, did he pack his alcohol, or did he know? Was he assured that there would be alcohol available? Like, that just started occurring to me, the anxiety he would have had,
Right.
because he hadn't yet, started really dealing with that issue, I guess, which he since decided to do, I guess, according to you.
Yeah. Actually he was guaranteed a bottle a week of rum.
A week.
Yeah, which was like supposed to tame because he can drink 2 bottles a night,
That, yeah, I was going to say that's quite a reduction.
yeah, but it was like out of respect for the fact that they knew
Yeah.
that he has this, and it's an interesting topic to talk about with different cultures who see the film have a different take on a lot of this stuff.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
Venezuelans watching the film, it's all kind of, I think it's quite clear the relationship with alcohol. For sure, there's a problem of wanting it and of drinking it in secret and of really using it to escape. But there's also Jorge gives his father rum while on set, partly for his film. And that part is very upsetting for some American watchers.
Right.
Especially people who, I think it's a moral issue, because
Yeah. However, it's a little bit.
it is upsetting, and it's also like hard to consider, like, is he doing it just for the film, or is he doing it for father because father needs it, or did they decide beforehand? And it's actually, the whole thing was very unclear to me and to both of them, I think, for a lot of the shoot, because they both knew they just wanted to push each other really hard, but they didn't really have this like super strategic plan about when and when not to use alcohol. They usually decided right before, or decided not to right before, things like that. So
well, I mean, the results, it's interesting. The results speak for themselves. He's seeking help, and so it all turned out maybe this was the best thing. And
well, I think too, like the interesting part is that the films are a record of your own life, you know? And the films are like, make him realize that he really wants to maybe
Decide to have
seek
a
something
beer.
else.
Decide to have a beer while you getting thirsty. I'm kidding.
No, that's the funny part. Actually, is that we were with some Venezuelans at a screening, and they were like, "Man, after that, I need to go for a rum," which is like that's what we said on the premiere. So it's just like a more kind of not chilled out, but like just a different relationship with alcohol that happens with certain cultures. And whereas other people, like when we showed the film here, where they would say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm not drinking for weeks. I never want to be like that." You know, like it all depends on, I guess.
Right. Well, Americans are, you know, we can have a very sanctimonious, you know, or maybe just non-complex approach to the way we deal with certain issues anyway. So, you know, for people, yes, to watch the relationship Jorge Sr. has with alcohol, how it's destructive to self-destructive, it's destructive to his relationships. But on the other hand, you know, we need to be open-minded and more thoughtful about a lot of the nuances, you know, around each person's circumstances. And
Yeah.
you know, I mean, here we have, I can pick up a phone and get help very simply. I mean, I have a myriad menu of help. There's just where this may not be the case everywhere. I mean, there's lots of differences, right, around this issue culturally. And but at the end, it's a matter of you know, did this process of making this film together Fortismo, not Fortismo, what was it called?
La Fortaleza.
La Fortaleza?
La Fortaleza.
Lisa. You know, what was the outcome of it, you know, and were the father and son authentically, did they have an authentic connection? Did they, you know, was it healing? You know?
I think actually it was kind of the opposite of, I don't want to say the opposite. I think that it's still a process. I think it opened up avenues to, instead of putting a Band-Aid on a wound, what they did is rip off a Band-Aid and realize that there's all this shit that was never kind of dealt with, projections of each other, masculinity, that someone was or wasn't there for the other in the past on both sides, pride. I mean, think of it this way. Usually, anyway, with every father-son relationship, I would imagine, it's the father is on top and the son is below in terms of power and in terms of respect. And when you have a director-actor, it's like the exact opposite. So basically, Jorge went there with, yes, he had intentions to spend time with his father, but not as a son, kind of. He came in with intentions to become
the story, though, is
one in control.
Yeah. But on the other hand, you know, that's at least here in the States, we expect the parent to, you know, be the main catalyst for, you know, healing the relationship or not fucking it up to begin with.
Right.
So it's we put a lot of.
No, I mean and this process of a son coming back, that's what got me really wanting to make the film in the first place. What happens when the son decides to approach something that the family has decided, don't approach it, just go home, go to bed, everything's fine, I love everything, everything's fine, you know, like this kind of, he's basically, it's a very intrepid act. And even if it's in the name of making the film, that also services this process he wanted to go through with his father. So, and I believe too, my take in watching this and in especially in the edit of the film, really kind of learning about this more with my editor as we went through the material and really, you know, really saw things again and again and again, was I realized that this film making was, Jorge goes back to Venezuela to make films. He doesn't live there anymore. Why does he go back to a place that's super, super broken? I mean, economically, socially, his family's ripped apart. Most of them don't live there anymore. Why does he keep going back to a place to make his films there? And a part of it is that he wants to, there's unfinished business kind of there, you know? I think at first he thought he had unfinished things with his father. I want to work these things out with my dad. But I'd also think that he wanted to kind of come back at his dad, you know? He wanted to kind of show his dad or push his dad, because his dad in Venezuela has always pushed him away, and he wanted to come back and say, no, like this is what I think happens in my dad's fake life that I wrote him, you know, based on his real life. So it's an interesting thing because it unearths all these things. But now father and son, I feel, are on a, I mean, I hear them talk all the time on the phone, and I'm obviously in touch with father too, but they're in a different playing field, or a different plane of a relationship. It's an evolved relationship. I'm quite jealous of it. I think it's very hard to have this with your parent, to kind of transgress from something else where everything was going to stay. You know, sometimes we stay the same with our family that we can't get out of that. And this film was so intense that I think it led them to something else. So that's super interesting to watch.
Yeah, and it's actually, when you're going through it, it's like there's it's an emotion. Well, yeah, like a momentum that it has. It's you know, where this relationship where now everything is up for, you know, discussion or argument, and everything flies. You know, and if you kind of move on from it, it may be, and you haven't dealt with it all, it may be a lost opportunity. You know, it's like
Exactly.
really, it is an intense but interesting period to immerse yourself in and to really take full advantage of, because when you're both at that moment, you're both having an honest, you know, you're both open to it. That's the time to take it. Yeah, to do it.
Yeah, because it can't happen again. I mean, in that way.
Usually doesn't.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm really, as hard as everything was, as messy as things were during the film for both of them, and as painful as they've been during the film and after, and all kinds of stuff, the message overall for me is quite, I don't know, I'm quite taken by the fact, I'm quite moved by the fact that both these men decided to forge ahead together, to stay in it. That's a really beautiful thing. I think it's very rare, and I think that is a rare bond then that they have as well. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's probably. I mean, you know, Jorge, despite all of his tendencies, Senior does come across as having a real heart, a real soul.
Yeah, he's a big sweetie. Actually, he keeps sending us like images of him at the rehab, and it's like him with a flower.
Oh, wow.
Like, look, Mo, here's a flower.
You get very back to basics, right? I mean, you know, finding beauty in things that, you know, maybe were too painful to stop and.
Yeah, I think in the city he had trouble with that, but actually when Jorge took him to the jungle, when his son took him to the jungle to make their film, what in my film, young Jorge calls his mother, because he kind of doesn't know what to do about his dad. He needs some advice when they're in Caracas before they go, and she says, you know, he does so much better out of the city when he's in nature. And she's completely right. I mean, the father I knew was the one that we would go on these hikes in the jungle that you see in the film sometimes, into nature. And he taught me everything, all these weird things about the jungle, all the bugs, all the birds, all the cool stuff. And he feels like, you know, he's so, like, he's like this fully fulfilled human or something. I hate to say that so cheesily, but it felt very much like I was with this. And then when we get back to Caracas, we'd be where he was staying with his family. And I was like, I don't recognize this person, you know, because I was fortunate enough to get to know him there in that suspended space. But when he was young, he really did go to the jungle, and he really did live there for a while. And he made a tourist camp, and he tried to make it work before Venezuela really fell apart.
Yeah. And then while it was falling apart, he got involved in like a silver mining.
Gold mining, yeah.
Gold mining, yeah. And which was kind of a corrupt enterprise, right? So
it's illegal, yeah. And it's illegal, but it's also like the people involved with it are
right.
They'd never really had that much money in their life. So when they got all this money from raw gold, they, you know, it was crazy drugs and alcohol, crazy parties and all kinds of stuff. So he had, and Jorge's film deals more with what that looks like through a fictional lens, through a dramatic lens, but it's very interesting because you see, and especially it's interesting if you know from my film and from this conversation or from however you figure it out, that they shot in real abandoned mines with the real miners who still do that. They go somewhere else and do it and whatever, but they were casted and they came and shot in Jorge's film. So it's like, these are the same guys. They're not the same guys that father worked with before, because all those people are older. They're mostly young guys, but they do this, you know, still. And they do like dig the jungle apart, destroy the jungle with like these crazy hoses and like mine for golds in their t-shirts, you know?
Mhm.
So it was an interesting thing to be among, because you really get to know a kind of sense of, not like a fake it's a real sense of a place, you know, not like a, oh, he looks like a miner. It's like, no, that guy's actually a miner. That's why he's like, has 5 girls in his room every night or whatever. It's interesting.
Well, your film again is called El Father Plays Himself, and it is been having great success on the festival circuit. It's going to be, I know, at Cucalores in November, and were there other festivals prior to that? Other screenings?
Doc NYC, yeah.
Doc NYC, you mentioned that,
Is
but
like
that
at
was
the
also
same
November.
time, and IDFA will be after.
So Cucalores is a North Carolina-based festival. Doc NYC is, I forget what city that's in.
2 blocks from you or something.
Well, I'm not in NYC right now, so.
Oh, you're not.
I was, yeah. Like I'm in a up in the sort of among the farms and back roads in a little north of New York.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and behind this door, back here, is my son.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to know specific things about what it's like to watch this as a father, because I hear a lot from people watching it as a son who are talking to us online, but I don't really get to hear the experience of watching this film as a father.
I'll tell you what, Mo. It's interesting because I feel like I've been pretty good father on a certain level. Like with any mistakes I made, I feel like I'm doing okay with the most important thing is like being always there for my son. And, you know, I'm divorced from his mom. But, you know, I've always made, you know, had taken him every, you know, moment possible. So, you know, even despite the kind of legal contract, you know, and so, you know, where I've fallen short, you know, there's always some level of work in progress about it, but you know, I feel like I'm always aware or try to be aware of if I'm, you know, make sure I'm, you know, being a parent, you know, and doing a good job. And so, but the film, you know, it just gave a certain level of anxiety because you know, you just want to make sure your son feels like, you know, the father's there. He's like the solid, you know, like anchor, you know.
So to see someone veer off a path or to become not so solid sometimes is like, reminds you like, fuck, I don't want to do that, you know, I don't want to, is that
Well,
what you
yeah,
mean?
I mean, of course, there's a fear that, you know, even if you don't go off the rails, that you're, you know, you're being destructive in some way, you know. I mean,
Right.
I don't, you know. So
Because
anyway,
you're
but
human, you're a human being, but when you're a dad, I think you're supposed to be like a superhuman, or you think you are.
yeah, those are the expectations that one would have of themselves, you know. I don't know. It would be interesting to talk to a father who has wealth and, you know, sets everything up for their family and there's no, you know, no anxiety or fears about it. It'd be interesting to talk to somebody like that and get them to open up, you know, because I mean, he's grown up in a kind of like, you know, mostly stable, and I mean, you know, thing. Economically, the country's been so in the last 12 years all over the place, you know, and so therefore it's sort of been true with it. Both of his parents are in the arts, so you know, you just have, this is where I focus most of my anxiety, because that's the one big area where I feel like it's a biggest challenge, is to give him a, you know, a financial and stability, you know, and all that, which was much easier to do a couple of decades before that, you know.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I think that must be, especially, yeah, projections of the future there's no way they cannot be tied up with that. I think it's super interesting because there seem to be like all these, there's always sensations. I know what a mother-daughter relationship's like. There's always things that are not said, not because no one wants to, is because you don't think you have to, or because you don't know how to, or because you just don't think to, right? And it's interesting to watch a father and son, because at first I was a bit, say something, you know, especially Jorge Jr. is very calm and very kind of composed. Or when he doesn't know what to do, now I know him super well, but it's
He
just
withdraws
anytime
a
he
little
doesn't
bit.
know what to do, he kind of just falls silent and like, and
Withdraws.
waits to figure out his situation in his head, but he doesn't realize that his silence is like deafening and makes people like super insecure, or it makes them create stories or whatever. So anyway, when I'm first filming these two, and there's all this unsaid stuff, but it's all this said stuff too in Jorge's script. So I'm like, hello, like you're just gonna have your dad do that scene, and you're not gonna then like after talk, like say anything. You're not gonna say how you feel while you wrote it in there. You know, I'm thinking maybe as a woman, I don't know, I'm thinking the way that my mom and I talk too much, you know. In fact, a lot is buried in all these words we say to each other, but maybe like we didn't get to the core of the important thing. Either way, I think it's very difficult as a parent or as a child to get to the core of the important thing. And I think most of the time you don't know, you're not even doing it. But it was super fascinating to watch father-son with these things that I watch be transposed with looks or with body language, or with, it's like they don't know each other well enough to read each other's minds. So it's not historical knowledge and like, no, oh, I know them so well, so I can read their mind, and they don't have to say anything. Like I have that with my sister because I spent like my whole life with her. It's not that, but it is something about their energies where they can read each other super well. And I kind of envy that in this.
But the camera lens, of course, that's where, you know, the camera lens comes in, because you can interpret what you're watching, of course, any way you will, and you bring, of course, your own feelings and thoughts and aspirations into how you interpret it. But I saw a father, despite his foibles, who seemed pretty proud,
right,
of his son. Like,
very proud.
I feel a little embarrassed because I didn't contribute to how this kid turned into this man. You know, maybe I was absent for a lot of that, but I'm pretty proud despite that. But it's a very bittersweet experience to observe that. I mean, as the father, because you were of just that, you know, you've seen your son turn out to be this sweet person. And then on the other hand, I as a father failed in that, you know.
Right. Yeah. And
So
yeah,
you know,
but there's a redemption, because he's like, I can do you well because you made me your lead character.
Right.
You made me
Right.
Jorge's film. They go to the jungle and they do all these heroic things that Jorge had heard stories about as a kid. They also do things like deal with the alcoholism and these fallible parts of father's life. But really, the core of that story is a beautiful one, where Jorge's trying to look at how his dad is a strong person who builds a fortaleza for himself, you know. And so father also was like, this film is a chance to redeem myself in a way. Even though Jorge wasn't necessarily asking for that, father was kind of asking for that for himself, you know?
Yeah.
And he did a magnificent job. I can tell you that La Fortaleza father was fantastic, but also he really liked it.
Well,
in the end, he really liked playing a role, even if it was very confusing for him and very emotional and very hard sometimes. I think he was very good at it too.
Well, and it's obviously contributed to his decision, maybe it did, to now, you know, go to this facility he's in.
I think there's so much to process there. So I think
Yeah.
Also, the people at the facility asked if they could watch our father. So it's interesting because
Really?
I think that some of these processes are, you know, it's like a way to get some distance, to be over there and we're here and we, you know, not making another film yet, just like, oh, let's have some distance and process what happened. And I think there's a record for him in a way, you know, in that way. A lot to chew on. I'm still processing.
Well, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really nice to talk with you. And I look forward to hearing more about the film and to, you know, its continued success. And we'll let people know all the details about Doc NYC and Cucaloris and beyond.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, because we have this campaign, like I had said before, we won this award to distribute ourselves.
Okay.
If people stay in touch on the social media that we're saying, oh, okay, now it's useful, and this way it is, then they'll see chances that in certain areas we're going to be giving away, like we'll be doing private screenings online in certain places. And so we're planning all of those still, but if they stay in touch, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as @FatherPlaysDoc.
At Father Plays Doc.
Yes.
Okay.
@FatherPlaysDoc, like documentary.
So get on,
So
right. So
if-
follow,
yeah, if
follow
people,
on those platforms. Also, I don't know if I know I checked out your website. I don't know if there's you can join the mailing list potentially.
Yeah, there's a mailing list for my company's called Rake Films, RAKE.
Mhm.
There's a mailing list on our website too where we send out updates. And then we'll have
Right.
elfatherplayshimself.com as its own website like within the month, because we're going to want to host all of these online screenings, and
Sure.
we're going to do some like kind of, they call them cinefondos in Latin America, but it's like cinema groups where people discuss the cinema. It's kind of what you get at a festival. You watch a screening and then you discuss after, and usually what people would do it in person, but we're going to try to do them online and see what happens, because there's a lot here to
There's
unpack.
an enormous love of cinema in South America. I mean, we think about Europe as being really the hotbed for cinephiles, but there's an enormous love of cinema and a history of cinema in South America as well.
Yeah, and there's a big tradition there of using your family and your stories, and like family is absolutely everywhere in Latin American history, like cinema history. So yeah, we're also interested, if anybody, cinephiles who are watching this who have ideas of people who like to talk about Latin American films or kind of put things within context. I think El Father Plays Himself is an interesting film that kind of watches a process that I think has been happening in a lot of different ways in Latin American cinema. So we're looking for other spaces to kind of have that conversation and show the film.
Have you met or connected with Carlos Gutierrez?
No.
Okay, I'll put you in touch. He's very he's sort of in New York. He's got his hands on cinema from South America, Spanish language cinema. He's really, he programs a festival, and he also has, he usually introduces a lot of the films to other festivals. He's a great conduit in that way.
Cool. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
that would be
sure
awesome.
I'm sure he's aware of your film.
Hopefully. It's been a weird year. So people, it's like some people I will reach out, or they'll reach out to me, and they'll have heard of the film back at its premiere at Visions de Red, which was a very successful online festival. I can say that it was one of the first to make the bold move to still like do a festival in these crazy times. So we've had a lot of benefits from being a part of that for the premiere. But yeah, some people like knew about the film from then, and some people hadn't ever heard of it. So it's a weird year of
Cinema Tropical.
Okay. Actually, yes, he does know the film. He did the PR for Jorge's first film.
Oh yeah. So
I didn't know his last name, but they were saying Carlos from Cinema Tropical, and it was him.
And he's one of the sweetest guys I know.
Right. I met him. Where did I meet him? I think at TIFF or something a few years ago.
That makes sense. Yeah.
He's super nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, sadly, Jorge didn't get home in time, but maybe.
I know. I'm like, where are you?
Yeah.
He's like having a drink.
Well, maybe we can do a postscript. Maybe you guys, if you want to, we can.
Yeah, we could always do another conversation if you want to. But I mean, he should send you his film too before, so that you.
Yeah, no, I'd like to. Yeah, I do want to be, and I do have a nice. I at least have I set up a nice sort of screen here, and I have a screen of some size, and and then I have a projector, but I actually haven't needed it because I upgraded once I moved here, and I realized that I was going to be watching movies here for a while, so I just decided to go for something a little bit more, larger proportions.
Yeah.
I could see the details.
Right.
Anyway, it was really nice.
We bought a projector for our place here. We got 1 week before the quarantine. So actually we just had like this bed that we bought in a box and a plastic table we borrowed from a friend and nothing else. Luckily it was summer, so it wasn't like we were cold. We just like, then we eventually could get furniture. But we got, because in that time too, then the quarantine kind of extended, we ended up getting a projector online that is fine, except that it's like one of those cheaper ones that's like very loud. So,
Oh.
and we like watching like beautifully silent films, like not silent films, but films that
No, I know
use
what you mean.
silence
Right.
really nicely.
Right.
And
Yes.
so it's
Long,
impossible with that because it's just like the whole time.
long shots with little dialogue. I know.
Yeah, those could be
Yeah.
lovely, but not with this thing because then it just sounds like there's a
Oh.
fan blazing in the room or something. You're like, ah. So anyway,
Yeah.
stick to the setup you have. It sounds good.
It was nice meeting you.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you too. And we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Okay, ciao.
All right. Bye-bye.